Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today, I have a phenomenal young lady that I had the pleasure of recently coming in contact with just probably about a few months or so ago. We've been dealing with scheduling conflicts and things of that nature to get things on and up and rolling with the show. But we finally been able to pin it down and connect with one another. I'm super excited. She is a mom. She is an entrepreneur. She is an author. She's a speaker. She's just a woman with her hands in a lot of different projects, looking to make an impact, looking to be a game changer in this world. And I'm so excited to have her on the show to share a little bit about her journey. And all that it entails. It's going to be a wonderful and exciting experience that I just can't wait to get a hold of and get more and more insight about. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, let me introduce to you this God-fearing woman, Miss Nashana Johnson Lenore. Thank you, Nashana, so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as we get going with our show for today, Nashana, I do want to, of course, before we jump into our segments, I want to take an opportunity to um, give you a chance to just share a little bit, a little snippet about yourself, where you're from, what you do, things of that nature. Kind of give the audience a little bit of taste of who is Nashana Johnson Lenore.
Nashana is, as you say, I'm a mom first and foremost. That's my biggest, that's all of who I am, in reality. Um, I have 6 children. Yep, 2 sets of twins. And
Wow.
I love my babies. Everything that I am is because of them. I'm a mama. Keeps me busy, keeps me young. I feel old, but that's what keeps me young, you guys. My kid. Um, Outside of that, I run the Journey program. Journey is a life skills program for teenage youth ages 13 through 18. Um, our office is based out of Rochester, Minnesota, where I have been residing for the past 12 years. I'm a native of Chicago, south side of Chicago, Inglewood.
All right.
Um, I'm gonna rep Chicago everywhere I go until I die. uh, yeah, proud Chicagoan. Um, but yeah, I've been residing and giving back to the community of Rochester, Minnesota, for the past 11 years. Been a resident for 12 years. Um, and Journey is just something that was my passion project,
Hmm.
and so I run that, and that's for at-risk youth. I work with youth who um, have suffered some type of trauma, whether it be trafficking, sexual abuse, teen parents, academic hardships, juvenile corrections, foster care placements, or any out of home placements. Or any type of identity crisis situations, and they go through my 8 steps to promotion workshop. And then I assist their families, with community resources and needs, and I act as an advocate to the youth and their families to make sure that they're getting the assistance that they need from these different resources to help them get to where they need to be. I decided to start the Journey program because I needed that advocate in my life growing up as a child. And when that advocate was finally given to me, I noticed a change in my life after I received that assistance. So most kids, they don't. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold,
No, no
but
problem.
most kids, they don't have that advocacy, especially those who are suffering through trauma and are in the foster care system. So all the battles that I faced growing up in foster care by myself, I just really needed that somebody at one point in my life. So I always wanted to be that for other kids who are either in foster care or either faced with a difficult challenge that a child should never have to deal with alone. So I always wanted to be that. And I always wanted to make sure I connect them with a mentor, whether it be somebody in the career field of their choice. If they want to be a basketball player, I got to find that basketball player. I got to find that realtor, that nurse, whoever it is you want to be, and place that person in your life. Who's better to teach you to become what you want to be, other than somebody who's already successfully reached that point? So God actually put that vision on my heart. Like, it was a vision of mine, of course, that God gave me. And then I ignored my assignment for a very long time. And then God said, nope, this is what I want you to do. And I ignored that for a long time. And then he started putting it in my face. And I realized that it was God that was doing that, and I surrendered to it. And it's been a beautiful 11 years giving back. And Journey is my world outside of my children. So that's me. I run the Journey program. I'm a mom, and then I serve on a council in the state of Minnesota for the state as a consultant for the African American Child Wellbeing Unit that advises the Department of Human Services on changing policies and procedures for kids that are in foster care.
Wow.
So, working on laws for the state, for DHS, because that's where it matters, because we can do all the advocacy that we want, but if there's laws and policies in place that allow certain things to happen, people that are employed through these agencies are just kind of like doing their jobs because per policy, we got to change policy. Policy changes what's the biggest thing. So I do a little work and consultation in that area. Um, and and I'm writing a book, and I'm working on my mental health. So that's Nashana right now, just really focused on being the best version of myself, healing mentally all over again, because I healed once and then I went through trauma again. And with that experience, I know how to heal myself again. So I'm going through that healing process, which has been a beautiful journey. Um, Putting yourself first is so underrated. Like, it's so
Mm.
important to be selfish sometimes. Um, so that's where I'm at. I'm just really focused on my healing journey, my new veganism, working on that. Excited to be a vegan. And then I'm about to lock my hair and start my lock journey. So I'm excited about that. I mean, little stuff, but to other people, it might be like, oh, that's what you're doing. Like, I've done all the big stuff. I want to do the small stuff. Like, you know, my hair and skincare and what I'm eating, like all that stuff is important. I've always been on the front line of change and community and families and in these young kids' lives, to making sure that everything that they want to become became my mission. And I took on all of that. And I'm very proud of our alumni who graduated our workshop, because they're doing great things. And I'm at a point now where I just want to focus on me and mine. I still am active in the Journey program, but at a smaller capacity. But yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, that is a powerful introduction of who you are, and I think that the key words there's a few key words in just your initial talk is, of course, journey is at the forefront of it all. And as you said, some people may not make a big fuss about some of the things that you refer to as maybe seem like simple things or minor things, but I don't think there's anything minor when it comes to one's journey. It's a culmination of aspects and perspectives and things that just have to all come together that play a role in you ultimately living out the vision, the purpose, if you will, of your life. And I love the fact that you acknowledge acknowledging that, hey, God placed this vision on me, and He does it for all of us, and as you stated, a lot of us, and I've been guilty of the same thing. We see this vision, and it's a big thing. It's overwhelming in many ways, and we kind of brush it off a lot of times. We kind of, nah, I don't know if that's for me or whatever. But when it's God appointed for you to do, and that's what visions are about. Because God doesn't, God's just not going to just throw something out there just because He didn't have anything to do. He puts something specific on your heart to do, to tap into gifts that He placed in you from the beginning, from the first time that you came into life's existence, that one day throughout your journey would lead you into doing the works that you're doing right now and will continue to do. So, I mean, I think that's awesome stuff that you're involved in, that you're putting your stamp on, and I love the fact that you're acknowledging that, hey, while I'm on this journey and I'm looking to pour into and change the lives of others, I'm also acknowledging the importance of self-worth and self-value and self-care. So yeah, again, somebody may down, well, you want to get your hair right or get your skin right or you're eating right. Well, all of that matters because again, if you are truly going to be a visionary and live out this purpose, and again, this is a big deal. Vision is a big deal. Anybody can go into business, but when you are a
Hmm.
visionary, when you have a vision and it's massive of this nature, all of those things matter because how can you operate at the highest of levels if your diet isn't right, if your personal mental is not right, your emotional is not right, your spiritual is not right, all of those things have to be in alignment for you to be the best version of you. So I love the way that you're just right out the gate, setting the tone for the vision and what you're doing. And again, just wonderful, great works. And of course, you know, you it's a good shout out to you from you coming from Chicago. I'm born and raised in Chicago myself, so so I'm very familiar with Inglewood. I lived on the South Side too, so I'm familiar with Inglewood. I have many friends who grew up in that area. So yeah, so
Part of Chicago are you from?
I grew up actually on 91st and Ada.
In Ada. Okay, okay.
hmm Yeah. So yeah, so I'm very familiar, of course, very familiar with Chicago. It's been a minute since I had a chance to get back, but Chicago's just in you. No matter where you ultimately, if you move off to somewhere else or whatever, it's Chicago. It's Chicago. So
If you make it to Chicago, you can make it anywhere.
right, right, right. So awesome, awesome introduction. So I know, Nashana, you have some upcoming projects in the works, and one of the things I did want to ask you, of course, as with any journey, you really can't fully embrace the journey without saying a little bit about, what was it like, I guess in the beginnings, if you will, the growing up, that environment. What was that like for you? Fond memories, things of that nature. And again, I know you have some upcoming, your book and other things. So I'm not expecting you to tell it all right now because we don't want to give everything away. But if you would, just for our audience sake, kind of give them a snapshot of what was it like for you, kind of growing up. What's kind of the general experience like for you? People don't know about growing up in Chicago and what that life was like, and just whatever personally that you dealt with. And it, again, fond memories as well as if there are some any challenges that you're comfortable with sharing at this time. Please do kind of give people a little taste about what those beginning days and in life were for you.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, have you ever watched those like old movies where the beginning of the movie they play like those old school songs, and then you
hmm
got like what's coming to my mind right now is like diamond in the back, sun rooftop, big
right.
gangsterly. So I'm trying to think of what movie might have, like Crooklyn or um just those old movies where the movie first comes on and then there's like this visual from the sky. That's how my movie gonna start off, by the way, because my autobiography gonna turn into a movie, right?
Hey, there you
And
go.
sky, and then you see kind of like the street and the cars, and they playing this really good old school music. So when I think about my childhood, like that's what I think of, and I see my grandfather driving his station wagon, his brown station wagon, with all the grandkids in the car, and we're headed to church. So, like my childhood memories, my grandfather, a lot of people don't know this. My grandfather is Joe Taylor, the boxer. He won the Golden Gloves in 1964. Big deal. He used to box in the same gym as Muhammad Ali. So, yeah, Joe Taylor is my grandfather. That's my dad's dad. And when people are like, Joe Taylor's your grandfather, yeah, Joe Taylor's my grandfather, and yeah, I'll leave that part out. But yeah, Joe Taylor's my grandfather, and he he was a boxer. My grandmother, they owned a house on Truth Street, and they owned several businesses. My family wasn't, on welfare, and just, they were well off, and a lot of good memories up until age 4. Um, my grandfather used to take us to go see all the Christmas lights in the rich people neighborhoods, and we would go see our family on the west side. Like we had a family on the west side of Chicago, was deep. So we'd go visit family on the west side, which was grandma's family. Granddaddy's family was from the south side. Grandma's family was on the west side. So we were between the west side and the south side all the time for birthday parties, all type of family gatherings. We're a big family. So church was a big deal. We went to church with grandma and granddaddy. The whole family had to go to church. Like my grandmama was really a big mama. She cooked really big meals for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Her house was that house that everybody could come over to eat. All her grandkids lived under the same roof. All her kids lived under the same roof. Her grandkids, and like we had, like Family Matters house had nothing. The Brady Bunch house had nothing on our house. Like everybody lived, like it was a family on each floor and in every room.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my childhood. Yeah, just corner store, candy store, ding dong dish, jumping rope. Like you know, everybody knew everybody. That was my childhood before foster care. It was a beautiful thing living with my family. Um, my mom did drugs, was on drugs. My dad was an alcoholic. And the domestic violence between the two of them is what caused me and my siblings to enter into foster care. And then my life changed drastically, like
Wow.
over from there.
Okay. And what age was that you ended up going in foster care?
I was 4 years old.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. Well, I appreciate your transparency and sharing that, and I know that there's more to your story, and I'm privileged that any information that you're willing to share about your journey on our podcast, and at the same time, I'm excited about projects that you have coming up that's going to even elaborate on it even further. But again, just even in the snippet that you've shared, it sets the tone, and in many ways, it explains even the vision that you're the space that you're in right now. I see elements just up to 4 years old that you've shared, just snippets of what childhood was like for you that you shared. Sometimes a little bit tells you a whole lot, and it to me it lines up perfectly with the direction that God has led you down these days in terms of again your vision and the community activists and work that you're doing and just other irons in the fire that you have right now. It was I know at that young age you didn't understand that what influence that might have on the things of the future, but I can clearly see just the little snippets that you just shared already how this is all tying itself into one another. So that's great stuff, and I just love again about the fact of I always love the community, the big family stories, and that because that was kind of a thing for a lot of us in Chicago in particular. I know in other areas, but in Chicago, I knew many people who had that experience, and everybody was kind of all under the same roof. Parents, the grandparents, the grandkids, all that kind of stuff. Even if you didn't have a lot, like I grew up as a single child, but even then, you still had the community of neighbors and such that you were communicating or eating over spending time over people's houses and things like that. You had these extended parents that were in the neighborhood that
Yeah.
kind of looked out for you and watched your back and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a thing. And even to the business aspect, Chicago for many years back in the day was very well known for having many black owned businesses in black neighborhoods. That was not a surprise, shocking thing. I knew many families, friends and family who had, their parents were business owners in a variety of different areas. So it's always
Yeah,
exciting to hear those stories.
not to cut you off, but it's like nowadays you'll see this glorification of black owned business as if back then it wasn't like a lot of black owned business. It's like creating this narrative for the younger generations who weren't there, who don't
Hmm.
know, as if to say, you know, we are becoming this. No, we already was that. Y'all
Hmm.
tore it and took from that. We already had that. We already been there. So I mean, it's always good to have black owned businesses. Like this year alone, 2022, 2023, I've seen so many young black entrepreneurs starting businesses, which is awesome. It's amazing. But back in the day, we had black businesses that was brick and mortars, family
Hmm.
owned, this generational passed down, and it actually was a thing, and it
Yeah.
was real, and it
Yeah.
was heavily supported. There was once a time where black people only shopped at black owned businesses. Nobody had to tell them go shop black owned business. It was never a thing now is to say, oh, black people, we don't shop black because black business. Like, I just recently seen this one guy, apparently he's like a food critic or something. And
I know what you're
it's,
talking about.
oh,
Yeah.
I don't watch too much social media, get into that kind of stuff. I saw snippets of it. I don't have much to say about it. But what I can say is, it's like we as black people, we criticize each other and tear each other down in so many different ways, that we don't realize. This is not taking one side or the other, but just in general, like we tear each other so bad. Like back in the day, it was no question that if it was a black owned business, we were going to go to the black people store because that's where we feel welcome, not because they were black.
Hmm.
It was about, oh, let me go support my own people. Like everything wasn't critical thinking. It was natural. You go where you feel accepted, period. There was white owned stores that black people went to because they felt accepted. Like we just went where we felt accepted. Nowadays, people don't care. They want to go wherever's popular, wherever's popping. They don't care how they treat you, you know?
Yeah. You're
So yeah, I
absolutely
just
right.
throw it in there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like you said, I mean, it was, you not only had you had black owned businesses, but a lot of the black owned businesses were in black neighborhoods as well. So it was like it wasn't that you had to go out of your neighborhood to find it. It was right there in all different segments. I was just having one of the people I had recently interviewed, a childhood friend of mine. And we were talking about that. How a couple of blocks away, there used to be a strip, and all of those businesses were pretty much all black. Literally, you could do every bit of shopping or anything that you needed to take care of on that one block, and it
Mhm.
included entertainment as well. So it was everything right there, and it was all black. And as kids, we didn't really truly understand the essence of that and the value of that until years later in your adult life, and you kind of see the presence of that, the existence of that is not the same as it used to be. But that was a big thing, and it was, like I said, it was a normal thing. And I'm glad that you pointed out that just a reminder to our aspiring entrepreneurs, our black entrepreneurs, that hey, this isn't something that is a new thing. We've always had these
Yeah.
businesses. We've always been creative minded and doing things of this nature. Having great talents, great skill sets, and things of that nature. It's just that the dynamics have changed a bit in terms of a variety of things: economics, politics, all types of stuff. And again, that's a whole nother conversation. But
Mhm.
we're not new to the experience of entrepreneurship. We are responsible for a lot that is out here, things that we get credit for, things that we don't get credit for. We've been very much in the mix of all of that. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So Nishana, as we move further along in your journey, and in life, there's always going to come a point in time where you have moments that hit you a little different. Experiences that this is not just a casual thing that I have to deal with. This is something that weighs a little bit more heavier on me, a little bit more pressing, a little bit more challenging, maybe even to the point where I start to question, how am I going to get through this particular situation. And while I know you have a variety of different stories that you can share, I know you've expressed interest in one in particular that you wanted to share that kind of falls into that segment. And so, if you would, I would like to go ahead and turn that over to you and give you an opportunity to share with us about one of those experiences that you had that was like that. That was again very challenging. We know you're here today to share it, so we know that you persevered and you survived. But in that moment, I'm sure it felt a whole lot different. So if you would kind of take us through what that experience was like for you, and what ultimately had to take place in order for you to have that breakthrough moment to see some light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Well, as you said, there has been so many of those times, unfortunately, that I have had to um, make a decision on how am I going to make it through. All my life, I've had to, I've been in a position where it's like, how do I get through this? And that's why I have anxiety disorder today. Mental health is at the forefront of my mission moving forward, raising awareness on mental health for especially kids through foster care and single moms and Black people in general. But recently, one of the hardest things I've had to deal with was my involvement on VH1 television show Black Ink Crew Chicago. Um, I can't begin to tell you, like, I had anxiety attacks on set. Um, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through in my life. I never got a chance to really tell my side of the story because it was a matter of, I know who I am. I know why I was there. I know what happened. I know, and when you know who you are and you know what happened, I was raised to and taught, if you know your business, there's no need to explain or share your side of the story. And I never did. And now that I'm healed, I want to share my side of the story, not for the sake of being right or seeking validation or understanding. I want to share my side of the story for anybody else who might have or is going through what I was going through. Um, the difficult moment that I faced, like when I growing up in foster care, like I said, it was hard. When I was 15 years old, I had transitioned within one single summer to three different foster homes, and during that time, I was working as the youngest writer for the Chicago Defender newspaper. Yep, till today, I'm the youngest writer for the Chicago Defender. I wrote for the Bud Billiken news column.
All right.
And I was asked to go cover Fashion Week in New York City. And the foster home that I was living in at the time, I won't give y'all too much juice because it's going to be in the book, but the lady that I was living with at the time, she exposed me to a lot of things at that age that I should have never been exposed to, which influenced me to do a lot of the things that she was doing. Um, I had a really good friend, and I thought she was my friend, right? But as I got older, I realized that we only connected and bonded through trauma.
Mm.
We both were in foster care. And so to me, that was my friend. But she was a negative influence on me as well. I was this straight A student. At that age, I was a part of this program called Hands Without Guns through my foster care agency. You Can, shout out You Can. You Can alumni. Um, I had created an award called the YLA Awards. I stood for Youth Leadership Award, which sent um, it sent a foster kid to college on a full ride scholarship. So I created the award to acknowledge the kids that were in that agency that were doing good, because one day my foster mom, she came home and she had this award in her hand. She used to lock me and my two sisters and another foster kid in the basement. We used to live right off Stony Island. She used to lock us in the basement. We slept on the floor. It had a mattress on the floor. And the toilet didn't work. It was over flooded with crap. And the floor was like the basement would flood and then the mattress would get soggy. So we had to, I'm sorry, hold on just 1 second. It's in the envelope. The key is sitting by the front door. I put everything there so you wouldn't have to come bother me. You just interrupted this podcast chat. Oh, I ain't even on mute. Y'all
Don't worry about it.
it? Okay. So, anyways, um, okay. I thought I muted myself. Y'all, that's Ayana. She getting ready to take my kids to lunch for me. So, anywho, it was a mattress on the floor, and the basement was flooded. The basement was flooded, and the mattress got soggy, of course, and the lady who was our foster parent, she had these black garbage bags, and we'd sit the garbage bags on top of the mattress, and then we'd place like coats and covers over them, and that's how we slept at night. And she kept like locks on the cabinets and the fridge, she kept locks on and bars on the windows. We couldn't escape, get out. It was like prison. And me and my siblings actually was a part of this really huge case that was all over the news in Chicago regarding kids that were in DCFS. And it was our case alone that changed a lot of the policies in DHS in Chicago. Anywho, with all that being said, coming from that, I was the youngest writer for the Chicago Defender newspaper, and I wrote about my experience in foster care. I wrote about the good deeds that were happening. Oh, to my point, the lady who we were living with, she took us to the office. They had this foster parent award dinner every night where they awarded, foster parent of the year. And this woman comes into the room and she's got this award, and I'm just like, this lady leaves us locked in the basement. So I'm like, I know a foster kid who is getting ready to go to Harvard. Nobody's talking about her. I know my brother and his friends, Vic Spencer. Vic Spencer was in foster care with me. He's a musician out of Chicago. He was a part of the You Can Voices. They performed, and I put together my own awards, and then 20 years later, they're celebrating um, the YLA Awards is still around. So that's one of my greatest achievements. Um, so all this was happening. I was 15. So when I say I was a good kid, I was a good kid. Like I was creating awards. I was speaking at schools. I was writing for the Defender. I was a straight A honor student. And one day changed my entire life. One day. I got an offer to go to New York City to cover Fashion Week for the Defender with my mentor, who was then the editor of the Sun-Times newspaper.
Hmm.
And we share the same last name. So I was invited by her and another mentor. And then I was interviewing on Power 92 with Donnie Devo. Um, Everybody was excited. He's like, this kid, she's only 15 and, blah, blah, blah. I was just really excited. I was in my prime. I was doing commercials for McDonald's. It was just a really great time in my life that I actually felt happy, after going through foster care and all these horror stories. And my foster parent at the time, she told me I couldn't go. And I couldn't understand why. And it was because her daughter was jealous. Her daughter was a college student, like just graduated high school, was a college student, and I guess there was an ego thing where she wasn't happy with where she was in her life, and um, they stunted my growth, and it hurt my feelings because I couldn't go to New York. And that night, I ran away from home, and my best friend, who we were bonding through trauma at the time, she I had alcohol for the first time. I lost my virginity. Um, a lot of bad things happened. And let's just say that that was the beginning of a downward spiral. Um, I switched foster homes 3 times within that one summer. And at the time, I was a freshman at Thornton High School. And
I went to
that's,
Thornton.
yeah, that's where I met Four. I met Four. We both lived in, I think, well, he was in Harvey and I was in Phoenix. I lived in Phoenix, Illinois. And I just remember this other bad influence friend of mine. I won't say any names, but she was way older than me. And I skipped school with her and went to these guys' house, and Four was there. And um, I can only remember bits and pieces, but we had relations. Um, and it was what it was, you know. We almost got caught because somebody's daddy or adult came home and we had to hide in the closet. um, I had never met him before that day. He was my friend's, whoever the guy my friend was with, it was his friend, which was
Hmm.
Four. And so and I didn't even remember his name, you know. Um, I ended up getting moved to a different foster home literally like shortly after that. Um, and when I found out I was pregnant, I was probably about 3 or 4 months. And at that time, let's just say I was outside all summer. Okay. Just misbehaving, rebelling. And at the age of 15, um, let's just say I had a few partners over the summer. And I was hurt. I was in a really bad space in my life because, like I said, things were going downhill. And I had my daughter, and the guy who I thought was her father showed up to the hospital when she was born, and he looked at her. He said that he was hungry. He was going to the cafeteria to get food, and he never came back.
Mm.
I was afraid that something had happened to him because he was a known drug dealer, gang member, you know. And I feared that he had gotten arrested or something by security. And the security looked at the cameras. They said, "Nope, we see this guy on the camera. He got in his car. He pulled off. He left." And I was really, really hurt. And when I finally got a hold of him, he goes, "That's not my child. It's not my daughter." And so my foster mom, she rests her soul, Freddie Brooks. She was the best foster parent I ever had. She taught me how to become a lady. She taught me hygiene. She taught me how to carry myself. She taught me morals. She taught me respect. She taught me accountability. She taught me how to be a mom. She never had her own children. And so she poured so much into me and my daughter and other foster kids that she took in through, excuse me, that she took in through foster care. Um, Anywho's, my mom was my baby daddy. My daughter didn't need for anything. My mom, she was there. Um, in my mind, this guy was her dad, and he just didn't want to be in her life, you know. And so I never went looking for anyone else, you know, because he
Hmm.
resembled. I never gave it any thought. So as time went on, I ended up going to Atlanta with a girlfriend of mine. And we met these Asian guys at the airport. My high school one of my best friends from high school. She moved to Atlanta. Me and another girlfriend went to visit her. And so we met these Asians at the airport, and they were from California. And they're like, "Oh, you guys, did you fly here for the tattoo convention?" We're like, "No, we didn't know anything about a tattoo convention." They're like, "You should come and get a tooth gem. We're gonna do a tooth gem." We're gonna do it for free, if you let us put you on our Instagram. And me and my friend was like, "Yo, we'll be there, right?" So we went. Now, I've never watched Black Ink Crew Chicago. I'm from Chicago, but like I'm so busy doing journey stuff, like I don't really watch too much TV like that, right? But my
Mm-hmm.
best friend, she used to talk about this guy named Ryan all the time, how he's so fine and blah blah blah. But I never really knew who she was like talking about. Like I saw him, like how you scroll social media and stuff, but I never really watched the show. So um, we went to the convention. And then she stops me and she goes, "Girl, there go Ryan from Black Inker." So they had this booth up and everything. And I'm gonna speed this up because it could get pretty lengthy. But she goes, "Ryan's over there," so we go over there. And she's all starstruck. "Hey, can I get a picture?" La, la, la. He's like, "Yeah, for sure, for sure." And so I took the picture of her and Ryan, and it's this other guy. He's tall, dark skinned, and first thing that come to my mind is, "God, I know you from somewhere," right? And he looked at me the same way, like we both gave each other a look, like, "Hmm, I know you from somewhere." And she's like, "Dude, that's four." And I was like, "Four? Okay, four." And so we all took a picture. And I was like, "You look familiar." He's like, "Yeah, you too." And he's like, "You from Chicago?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from Chicago." And he's like, "Okay, what school you went to?" And I was like, "Thornton." He was like, "Oh, wow, I got friends with Thornton, blah, blah, blah." And so he's like, "What y'all doing after this?" And I'm like, "Oh, we don't know. We just outside." And I think we exchanged snaps or something or phone numbers. I don't know what it was. Or maybe it was one of his friends. But anyways, we ended up where they were at. It was like a restaurant or something. And he invited us, and we went, and we all hung out. He bought us drinks and stuff, and we had a good time. We sat with, like, it was a Black Ink Crew staff or whatever. They had like a table. Everybody was eating dinner. There was like dinner, hookah. It was at a actual restaurant, like in the back, a private section. And we had fun, and then we left there, and we were with those guys wherever they went that night. We went from the restaurant to the nightclub. They had like a booth, a section area. We went there, and then me and him were like literally vibing, like it was an actual physical attraction that we had. And I think on my end, it was more so, I want to know where I know you from, right? And so we were kicking it. Like I got videos of us that night, just kind of like vibing together. And so I'm drunk, he drunk, right? And so I was like, you know, you look familiar. Like, we didn't mess around before or something. He like, "I know, I thought the same thing, right?" He like, "But I didn't want to say it." He goes, "I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to be disrespectful to." He was really respectful. Long story short, him and some white girls started tonguing each other down in the middle of the club, and so we left. I never like talked to him again after that, but I went home and I looked him up, like his Facebook and stuff, and saw like all my people that I went to school with, that I was close with, that he was close with, like similar people. We had a lot of mutual friends in his photos. And so I was like, "God, he looks like my daughter," you know? And I don't know, it just came to me. It came to me after, because he looks different. He looks really different. He back then, like he's got his teeth done. He's got like shorter hair. He used to have dreads back then. He was a little bit more heavy. Let's just say he looks different now than he did back then. So I didn't immediately recognize him. But as I started scrolling his Facebook, I'm like, "Oh my God. Oh my God. That's the dude from the closet." And then when I realized that, I was like, ooh, he looks like my daughter. Now, the guy that left the hospital, he ended up, I filed for child support for him. Well, I didn't. You know, when you're receiving like any type of public assistance, they'll make you put somebody's name down on there as the dad, and then, you know, send child support, all that stuff. So we went through that, and he had a child support order for a DNA test for years. The one guy, and
Mm-hmm.
um, he never, like, the state could never catch him, and then he ended up going to prison. And so while he was in prison, child support forced him to take a DNA test while he was in prison, and the DNA test came back that she wasn't his. I was crushed. I didn't know what to do because at this point my baby's like 14, 15, and I have to think back to 15 years ago who I slept with when I was 15 years old. I'm like, I don't know, like I have no clue. And I just really started feeling ashamed. I started feeling a lot of pain for my daughter. Um it was just a really dark moment in my life where I just, and then something in me just really wanted to start looking for her dad. And so I would take random trips to Chicago and drive around Jeffrey Manor, just asking questions and, you know, showing like pictures of my daughter to not random people, but like people I knew, like I went to church with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I didn't know what to do. That was a moment in my life where it was very, very difficult. And so when I went to Atlanta and I ran into Four and I realized who he was and realized that that was around the time, that was that summer that I had gotten pregnant, um, I started screenshotting some of his pictures from Facebook and putting them side by side to different photos of my daughter. And I was like, wow, they both got the underbite. Yep. Same eyebrows. Yep. Same head shape. Yep. And I start seeing similarities. And then I send it to my older sister. I said, Tosh, look at this. And she goes, that's Four from Black Ink Crew. I go, yeah. She like, why you got a picture of Ayana next to him? And I go, girl, do they look alike or not? She's like, yeah, they look just alike. I said, I slept with him in high school. And she's like, what? You lie? You think that's her daddy? I said, it's a possibility. Could be. I don't know. And she's like, so is you gonna tell him? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna tell him. I'm gonna wait till she's almost 18. You know, she can, like, we've had this conversation throughout the years, me and my daughter, and she's been well taken care of. She knows, you know, the struggle I've been through at the age of 15 when I got pregnant with her. I'm like, you know, I'm not thirsty or anything. And she's like, if I was you, I would tell him, blah, blah, blah. And we ended the conversation. The next day, I get a call from my sister, and she's like, okay, don't be mad at me. I'm like,
Mm.
what? She's like, I did something, and don't be mad, okay? Just promise me you won't be mad. Now, this is not like my older sister. My older sister is like the oldest sister. She's a Leo, so she's very bossy. She's very pushy. She's very controlling. So right now, she's like calm and, you know, asking for forgiveness. So I'm like, what did you do? And she goes, I sent the photo to Four, and he responded and said, who's your sister? And then his manager reached out and was like, we want to invite Nishana and Ayana onto the show. How can we reach your sister? And they are trying to get in contact with you. And can I give them your number? I'm like, hell no. No, absolutely not. And she gave it to him anyway. And they were messaging my Instagram. I refused to respond. And then eventually Four called me. My sister gave him my number. It was a Chicago number, popped up. I answered. And he's like, Nishana, this is Four, please don't hang up. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, is this true? You know, do you think your daughter could be my daughter? I said, well, me and you both know we recognize each other. You know, I don't know if you remember, we had relations back in high school. He was like, I don't know, that was so long ago. I do kind of remember a little bit about the closet situation, but it was so long ago. But I see the similarities, and I want to know too. And I said, well, we can do this off camera. And he goes, I signed something saying that everything going on in my life has to be video recorded. So I need you to come on the show and do it. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's the most embarrassing thing for me, for my daughter. And he's like, well, imagine if she is my daughter and I've gone all these years without knowing her, and I've got a 3-year contract with VH1 or Viacom or whatever the television company. And he says, I've got 3 years. I'd have to wait 3 years before finding out whether she's my daughter, because I can't do anything off camera without them knowing what's going on in my life. I said, well, oh, well, that's you. I'm not doing it. Bye. Hung up the phone. Him and the producers kept reaching out, and I was very upset with my sister for doing this behind my back.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter had no idea, zero idea about this yet. And this was before it hit Shade Room. I came home I told my sister, I said, don't even mention anything to Ayana right now. Let me tell her in my own way, you know? And I came home from work the next day, and Ayana's sitting on the couch. And she's like serious faced at the time. She's 16. And she's like, Mom, is this true? I go, huh, what you talking about? Like completely clueless. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, is it true? Is it a possibility that Ford could be my father? And I'm like, yep, it's true. It's a possibility. Me and him had relations when I was 15 years old. It was a long time ago. And she's like, what is this about you don't want to take the test? I said, I never said I didn't want to take the test. I said, I don't want to go on television. And she's like, but what about me? She said, what about me? You know, what about how I feel? I said, Ayana, you're really young right now. That can backfire. It could have a lot of really bad consequences if he's not your dad. She's like, but if you're so sure that you slept with him and it's a possibility, then it's worth me finding out. She's like, I really want to know. And I do see the similarities between me and him. And I said, I'm not going to do it, because if he's not your father, think of how bad that's going to be for you. I'm not even worried about me, but look at how bad that'll be for you. She's like, I don't care. And I said, no. And I went to my room, and I ignored it. Excuse me. My daughter would not talk to me. My daughter would not talk to me. Um, she said, Mom, can we please have a conversation? I said, if it's about this TV show, I don't want to talk about it. She's like, but can you please listen to me? My mom had just passed away, my foster mom that
Mm-hmm.
had raised me, my daughter, my baby daddy. She passed away in 2018, and it crushed my daughter. And so she was still in her healing journey from losing her grandma. And it hit me right here in the chest when she said, you know what? I wish my granny was here. Because maybe then she could, talk some sense into you so you can start putting me first
Mm.
and not your, because it's my life and I want to know if you made the mistake, that's on you. At least do this for me. And that really hurt it. And I said, okay, you think you're a big girl? You think you're ready for this? Then let's do it. I told you it's a possibility, and I wasn't sure. So I made the phone call, I called the producer back, and I let them know that we'd be willing to come onto the show and that we'd be willing to take the test. They flew us to Chicago on several different times. We were compensated a very small amount, um, just for the episodes that we were a part of. They covered all of our expenses, hotel and flights and all of that, transportation, food. Um, I never once had a single conversation with Ford that you did not see on camera. Once the cameras said cut, he went that way. There was never a single conversation held by me and Ford ever
Hmm.
that you see on camera. So when we first got there, the conversation with me and Ford at the table, where I think he had on like lime green or something. That was our first day shooting. I was nervous as hell. Um, he asked, could he, what we talked about when we met and what happened, and he asked if he could meet Ayana, and I said I don't. No, Ayana was outside in the van. This was our first time there. Um, we pulled up to the restaurant. The director brought us there. Told us we'd go in. The first scene, we just talk about, how we met, what happened, and things like that. And as we were having a conversation, he asked, could he meet Ayana? I said, it's up to her whether she wants to meet you or not. And I said, I'll ask her. And then I went to the car and I asked her, I said, he likes to know if he could meet you. It's totally up to you. And she's like, yeah, I want to meet him. Like, to her, that's four.
Right.
That's dude off Black Ink Crew. She's not like, that's my dad. Like, that's like saying, um, is any celebrity like that's a kid, like they want to meet a celebrity, and to her it was like, yeah, I want to meet four. So it was like, to other people watching, it was like, why would you bring your daughter in here to meet the man if you don't even know that's her dad? Like, she was cool with meeting him because it was just four, like she watches Black Ink Crew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, yeah, I want to go meet him and say hi. So that's how she came in. She said hi, and then we left. I'm like, when are we gonna take the DNA test? Because
Right.
y'all done flew like three times, and it's always something other than that. And at this point, I'm pissed off because we're at the restaurant, and I'm literally having this panic attack because we're sitting there, like they throw little curveballs in there that we didn't discuss.
Mm.
They'd say, okay, this scene, we're going to talk about this. And this is what we want you guys to discuss. But then they never told me that Don was going to be there with this DNA test. I didn't even know Don was going to be there, period. Like, I never even saw him. Like, he came out of nowhere. So we get in the restaurant and I sit down. Don's right there. Like, if I knew you were bringing your brother, I would have brought my sister because she would have chewed Don up at that table. Like everything that he did was like totally uncalled for. So we were having a civilized conversation, and then Don just goes boop and put a DNA test in front of my daughter. Really? That's not how we do business. This is not what I came for. Like, this is my life for real.
Right.
This like some type of thing you're doing for cloud or for views or whatever, storyline, but this is my life for real. I don't even want to be here. I'm here for my daughter, and you playing games, and you put a DNA test and I flipped it. Like, don't put that in front of my daughter and don't disrespect my child in front of me. You done lost your mind. And so to others, it was more so like, if you claim or you really think that that's the baby daddy, take the test, then take the test. Like,
Right.
no, you gonna show me respect. Period. I don't care what you thought, my actions or who I was or what I did when I was 15 years old, homeless, being molested, going through all these different things as a foster child. You can paint me and label me however you feel. But in front of my child today at this table, you're going to show me some respect. And you're not going to throw no DNA test kit in front of my child like that. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, to me, it was like, you're treating me in that moment. It felt like he was treating me like what he thought of me. Like, you don't know who your baby daddy is. Like, you a hoe. So here, I'm going to treat you like one of those. No, you don't get to do that to me. People can only do to you what you allow them to do to you, right? And so I blacked out. I don't even know what I said after that. I just know that I walked out. You know, I was ready to hit him. Like, I've never been so ready to fight a grown man. Like, he probably would have beat me, but I probably would have got him with a chair or a stump. I was so mad, and all
Well,
I
like you
kept
said, you were
saying was,
being, yeah. I'm sorry.
"I'm
Like
telling
you said, I was just being, you being played with, and I guess that's the
you,
whole reality
yeah."
TV
It was
deal,
in that moment
So,
that that this is for TV. Like, this man ain't even for real trying to figure out whether or not this is his daughter. Like, I'm thinking we here on business, you know, and it wasn't even like that. And my daughter, I would have never allowed her to be there through all that, but she wanted
mhm.
to be there. Like, it's not like she's 10, so she's 16 years old. Not only is she 16, but she a 16-year-old that look like she's 21. She bigger than me, and she's hella smart. Like, nah, you won't get to see me in no back seat. Like, I know exactly what's going on, you know. So anyway, I had a whole panic attack and had to leave out, and the cameras in my face was like, it was too much. It was too much, and in that moment I realized that I had made a mistake. I should have stood my grounds and I should have said no. At this point, we're all over social media. We're all over Shade Room. I got my family members and friends all calling me, you know, um, thinking, oh, you didn't reach celebrity status. Oh, you finna get paid. You finna blow up. Like, no. When I look at Kim Kardashian and how she got to where she is because of that Ray J tape, like, how could you ever be confident in who you are as a person? Even though people change, but it's like you'll forever be that. That's how you got your start. You know, I don't ever want to be somebody's celebrity and be known for being on Black Ink Crew and the DNA test was negative. Even Maury commented like, "Come on the Maury show." It was so embarrassing, and as I knew it would be, it was hard on my child. It was very hard on my child. They drugged that thing, and every week I'd say, "When are we going to take the test? I'm done with this." But I had signed an agreement at the
Mm.
beginning. Careful what you sign. I had signed something saying that we agreed to come on the show and take the test, and they drugged that thing for views. Their ratings was like on the Shade Room, like seeing all those people, like, oh, she brought her daughter out here for fame. She looking for clout. This her ticket to fame. Why would she do her daughter? Like, I'm gonna send you a screenshot. Like, people would send stuff to my Instagram and DM and say, you petty for using your daughter to go on that show. You knew you was a hoe. Um,
Wow.
Spreading your legs, different niggas. You've ruined your daughter's reputation. Like, you did this to your daughter. Like, it was hard, and having anxiety disorder on top of that, it just was very difficult. I stopped my program for a while because even like the kids in my program were old enough, they were watching Black Ink Crew, and um, it was like I couldn't go in the airport, me and my daughter, without people taking photos. Um, my family, everybody's like, people close to me, it's like they didn't care what we were going through. Everybody just wanted to know what was the results. They're making us, like, they drug it like for 3 weeks, showing the episode that showed the results, and everybody was just like on edge. What was the results? Like, we knew what the results was because we had filmed it, but they had waited until after the new year to post it, and it was we were going through a lot of stress because the results were negative. So we were sitting in that hurt and in that pain of that being publicized. And during that time, family members and friends and strangers all over the world were like messaging me and Ayana on Instagram and just in our inner circles. What was the results? What's the results? Like, while we were sitting in that hurt, like, nobody cared.
Hmm.
And that was during a time where I felt like my family should have embraced us more. people who we thought were our friends, um, but they didn't. And actually, Ayana wasn't home. She left the day of filming. Like, I flew back to Minnesota by myself, and she decided to stay in Chicago with my sister. Um, and she didn't come home for 2 years. And she dropped out of high school, her senior year of high school. Actually, she was a junior. She dropped out her junior year, and then she went back, finished junior year, and then she struggled her senior year, and it was hard. She isolated from the world. She was depressed. She was very stressed out. Um, and it took a very long time to get my daughter to talk to me again. And so it made my job as a mentor, as an advocate for other kids, really difficult to do with my own children. Even like my 17-year-old daughters, it was difficult for them going to school because of what had happened on the show. So it just wasn't a negative impact on my daughter, it was a negative impact on my other children as well. Um,
So,
Eventually, my other two daughters moved to Chicago and left home as well. So it was hard.
so let me ask you this. So, in light of all of this that went on, and like you said, ultimately getting to the end result of it being negative, and the repercussions that come from that, what did the healing process look like for, you talked about there was a separation between you and your daughter for a couple of years, and it affected her in school. It even affected some of your younger children. What was ultimately that moment where everybody sort of, I don't know the best way to say this, sort of came together and said, we have to heal, we have to move beyond this pain that we're in. What did that look like for you and your daughter? Well, I guess everybody, you and all your children, for that fact. What did that healing process look like for you?
Well, my daughter, when she went back to Chicago, my kids, I took them out of Chicago at a really young age. So they didn't really face a lot of hardships that I
Mm-hmm.
did growing up. So now she's 17 years old. She's in Chicago, and she's experiencing those hardships. And she couldn't call on nobody but her mama. When she needed something, it was always me. Of course. So she came to the realization that all I got is my mama. And eventually, she came home. And to be honest, till today, we still have never really had a heart to heart conversation about that at all whatsoever. And my other daughters, their behaviors start spiraling downwards, and eventually they moved with my other sister in Chicago, and their dad passed away last year in December. So when my own children have hardships, it make it difficult for me to be there for anybody else. So it was at that point I realized I need to transition my life. I did a big move, a big thing with my organization where I went out with a bang with the Juneteenth scholarship. And I said, at this point, I have to draw back. I have to
Mm-hmm.
give back to I have to give back to myself, and I have to redirect my focus because I realized that my coping skill through all of that, how I was able to get through all of that pressure and public humiliation, was to dive myself into my work with journey. And that's what I did. That was my coping. And I'm a Capricorn, so we'll dive into our work quick. So, but that's not what I should have done. I should have been there more for my children. And as a teen parent, I had to learn that skill and develop that skill. And to any other young teen parent that's raising kids, the best advice I can give you is always put your kids first. Even above yourself, put your kids first. When it comes to your mental health, you got to do whatever is going to give you clarity in your mind so that you can be able to pour into them. Because if you have nothing, see, I had nothing, so I couldn't pour into them.
Mm-hmm.
All I knew was my work, because that was already embedded in me. It wasn't something I had to find. I didn't have to find the strength, because pouring into my children, I had to find strength to pour in my children, to pour into my children. It was easy for me to teach other young kids how to overcome adversity, how to deal with homelessness, how to deal with molestation, how to deal with physical, verbal, mental abuse, because it was already in me all my life. So that was something I had already mastered. It was something I already knew. So it was easy for me to dive myself into my work and let that be my coping mechanism while dealing with public humiliation. But that caused me to be an absent parent, because I lacked emotion. When you're working with kids in foster care or kids who are dealing with trauma, and you have gone through that, you have to block your own emotions in order to take on theirs. You cannot be an emotional character while doing that work.
Mm-hmm.
So I was emotionless at work, and then got home and was emotionless at home when it came to my kids and their feelings and their needs. I was still stuck in between that coping mechanism. That's how I shield and protect myself from the public humiliation. So, um, how I fixed that was to draw back from work. Drawing back from work was my coping skill. It was my therapy, because I was able to talk and be vulnerable about my past. With not having journey, or not being active within that safe space, I had to face my children, who were at the time a product of everything, who was a product of my adolescent years,
Mm-hmm.
and an old part of me that I was trying to grow from. So I had to face that, and it crushed me. My twin's father was somebody that I was with for survival. Ayana, I was too young to know better. And so, looking at my children, although I've always taken care of them and made sure that they had everything they need, I always made sure they were in safe environments, I didn't pour into them like I should have. There was a piece of me that I kept away from them. And so, the only way to heal from that is to talk about it. But it didn't turn out how I thought it would when I decided to talk about it, because it was too much. You got to be careful what you share with children or young people, because they weren't children, they were preteens and teenagers at the time. Sometimes people don't be ready for that truth,
Mm-hmm.
especially my kids, who I had masked from hardship. They wasn't ready for that truth when I told Ayana the situation about four and about my childhood and that one summer, that one wild summer. When I told the twins about their dad and how we met and how he was a survival mechanism, you know, they just wasn't sure how to receive that. When you've given your children everything that you didn't have, and you're raising them up. I'm sorry, my mouth is so dry because I'm getting over a cold. And my daughter, she keeps stealing my good lip gloss, and she done left me with the beauty supply. But my mouth is just begging for some type of good moisturizer. I'm sorry. So um, I don't know. They took it hard. They took it really hard, and it was almost like, what? Like, I would like to say my kids grew up in a really nice neighborhood. I would say a middle class, upper middle class neighborhood. They went to really good schools. They did extracurricular activities. They had lots of good, positive role models in their lives. They had a mom that always worked. I didn't have different men in and out the house. I didn't have any substance abuse issues. Um, yeah, for the most part, they were raised pretty well. And then, so all of the dark parts of my past wasn't necessarily put in their face. And so after being on the show and having to explain a lot of those parts of my past to my children, they didn't take it too well. It was like,
Right.
and they did.
Yeah.
And it was hard. So yeah. And we've never, my twins, yes, we have had conversation. Um, Ayana, we just agree to disagree and we agree to move forward. We know that we all we have is each other. She knows that I'm her mom. She knows that I'm here for her. She knows that I was young and I made mistakes, and it's just that. Um, a lot of what happened to me and why I made a lot of the decisions that I made is due to me not having those types of conversations with my own parents, my mom and my dad. They're in my life now, and my parents don't know nothing of what happened to me and my siblings growing up in foster care. How we were beaten and abused by my aunt, placed in a tub full of alcohol, giving Alka-Seltzer Plus every night while she turned tricks, you know, homelessness and the neglect and the abuse by family members, verbally, physically, and sexually. You know, my mother and father, we've never sat down and had that conversation, and maybe that's why it was so hard for me to sit down and have that conversation with my own children about what happened to me in my past that caused it. So instead of me sitting down and forcing that conversation upon my children, because I've tried to have that conversation and they're just like, we're not having it. I respect their boundaries and the way that they choose to have that conversation. So um, I give it back. I give it back to those who I think need it. I try to be that safe space for others who want to have that conversation with their mom or their dad, or um, letting them know, just based off my own experience. Lived experience always gonna trump education. I don't care what nobody say. So yeah, that's where we're
Wow.
at. And
Wow.
before he
Wow.
never reached out. Never watched a single episode. I never watched. I think I watched the first episode. That was it. I never watched it. I don't even know how it ended. But I remember the last episode that we did. My sister, my little sister, was on the show with us, and the results came back, and she had made a face, and I wanted to laugh because I had already embraced myself for that moment,
Mm-hmm.
but she had made a face where she displayed my inner emotions for me on her face, and I wanted to laugh so bad, and I guess it made it seem like I wasn't serious. I was. It's just I had already braced myself for that, just in case, and it was like, okay.
Well, let me first start off by saying I admire greatly your transparency, your vulnerability in sharing this type of story to the details and extent that you did, and I even know that there's more layers to it that as you and I discussed even before the broadcast started, that you will reveal in other platforms and in your book and things of that nature. Such a massive story to tell, and so many moving parts to it. But for me, my takeaway from it is, you had to go through this. You had to go through. There was purpose in this, as painful as it was for you, as painful as it ultimately ended up being for your daughter, dealing with that negativity that came from that experience on the reality show. It had to happen, and I take it back to the works that God put the vision on for you to do that you're doing right now. Like you had to learn, for example, the importance of discernment, in the sense of, when God is telling you, hey, this is not a good move to do. God was speaking to you before you even went on the show to say, don't do this. Don't do this. I know your
Yeah,
daughter. You understood where your daughter was coming from. I want to know who my dad is. But at the same time, God also placed in you, and that's something that he does with us, especially in a role of a parent, You know, we kind of know what's best for our kids at times. I'm not saying we always get it right, but there's an instinctive thing that gets placed in us that God puts in us to say, to kind of protects us, to helps us, I should say, to protect us and to protect our children. And that's what was resonating with you at that time. But, under the
Hmm.
pressures of your daughter, and you meant well, you're like, if you want to do this, okay, knowing in the back of your mind that there was still a possibility that even with the resemblance, that this could come back as a no. And not only just that, you weren't even so much even worried about, I don't think at the time, whether it be a negative result or not, as much as your resistance in even going on reality TV. Like, would they use this as an opportunity to exploit us, basically? And that's exactly what they did. They exploited the moment, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and for something
And,
so sensitive, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, reality TV is not what a lot of people think it is. It is scripted to a certain extent. It really is. And they only show bits and pieces of the conversation. Like, they only take
Mm-hmm.
what they want and put it on there. Just so people are aware. Like, there's a lot of pieces of the conversation that get aired. There was a whole conversation with we went on WGCI with Charmaine. Like, that never got aired. My side never got told. Like, this ain't what I'm saying to you. Like, I was on WGCI with Charmaine. Like, the station refused to let her air it because it went against the storyline that VH1, was trying to paint. Like, look at this stupid girl. She don't know who her baby daddy is. She claiming it's for. Okay, the results are negative. Ha ha. Like, and that's how they try to tear down black women. And it's like, tell the whole truth. You know. But like I said at the time, I really wasn't worried about my side of the story being put out. I was more so worried about being there for my kids.
Right, right.
You know.
And again, that's what, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that you were trying to exercise protection and concern for the well-being of your child, despite her anxiousness and wanting to know. And I know in the back of your mind you wanted that confirmation, but you didn't. But you were willing to forego the confirmation if it meant compromising the integrity, compromising, the peace of mind, if you will, the well-being of your child. You would have been fine going through life with that being an answer that never got answered if it meant not causing harm to your child. And that speaks volumes to who you are as a mother. That speaks volumes to the work that you do in trying to help, young people who've gone through all sorts of trauma of all different types and forms, some of which you've personally experienced, some of which even you maybe haven't experienced and they've still dealt with, and wanting to be able to come alongside them in an appropriate and proper way where you can give your all to them. And to that's why I said you had to go through this journey, because even for you to do the work that you did, and I know you said at one point, I used my work as an opportunity to just kind of delve into that to sort of block out everything else. And it's not that you don't already have the natural gift of being able to do what you do, but in order for you to heighten it, for you to go next level with it, that a vision calls for you to do, what has to happen is you had to be broken down. And this is where I believe the blessing comes in. This is where God has to sometimes, he has to break us down to a point in order for us to level up. In order for you to go next level with what you're doing, you had to be broken down. You had to be reminded that for all of the love and compassion and empathy that you have inside of you, Nashana, you never took time to focus on healing you. You never took time to do that for you. And so at the very top of the show, that was one of the very first things you spoke of. I'm part of my journey that I'm on right now is my healing, is my mental health. You've heard this term, we can't pour from an empty cup. You can have all the good intentions and meaning well that you want to have. If your cup is empty, your
Hello,
cup
hello.
is empty. And
On
so how
that,
can
hold
you
up 1 second, okay?
no problem. So again, thank you for those of you who have been tuning in to our episode today. This has been a very powerful story that Nashana is sharing. But again, it's just yet another example about how we have to, in this journey of life that we're on, in the storms of life that we're on, that we have to at times, God has to break us down, really break us down to our bare basics, if you will, in order to reconstruct us, to refine us, to position us in a way so that we can truly be effective in our ability to come alongside other people that He has gifted us to be able to do that for. And so, I've really enjoyed, Nashana sharing her story, because it's so powerful. And again, it's a lot of moving parts to it, a lot of stuff to track in this story. But nevertheless, if you want to be able to be utilized by God, there is a breaking apart of you that has to happen. There are some storms along the way that you have to go through, but with God by your side, with God with you in that storm, covering you, navigating you through that path, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to navigate through it, be successful in it all, and ultimately be able to live out doing the works that God would have for you to do. And again, doing it at a high level. And so I feel like in Nashana's case, this is exactly what, God had to go through, in with her, in order to, to develop her, to strengthen her, to build up her endurance, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. This is all a part of the journey. And it's so fitting that she heads up an organization that speaks to that name, Journey, because this is exactly what this whole experience has been, and what it'll continue to be, and how God will continue to utilize her in the journeys of other young men and young women who are going through that. Her story is going to be just tremendously impactful. Her life experiences are going to be, just, it's priceless, to be able to share, what she's able to share. And now taking that time out to say, I have to refill too. I have to strengthen myself too. I got to exercise some self-care and focus on my mental health and my mental well-being. And it's okay. That's what my stepdad used to refer to as healthy selfishness. We all need to have a little bit of that healthy selfishness, but more importantly, again, for us to do the works that God would have us to do, we got to make sure that our stuff is right. We got to be in order. We got to be the best versions of ourselves, so we can get so people can experience the best of us as we come alongside them. And so it's just been a treat, Nashana, having you, on the show, and speaking to the story the way that you have. And again, in such a transparent and such an authentic way. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more in that regard. And I truly, truly do appreciate that. But before I let you go, Nashana, I do want to give you an opportunity to, we here on the podcast, we love to take moments out to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge great works and great happenings that you got either going on now or to come. So please let us know what should we be looking forward to, and either going on right now or coming down the pipes from you, Nashana, that people need to be connecting with, tuning into, checking out. Please share that so we can love on you on this.
Thank you so much, for allowing me to be here again and share my story. I hope that the whole purpose, like I said, is to maybe give some hope to other young women who might be going through similar situations, whether it's with your children, with your mental health, with the DNA test of your children. Um, my favorite, those that's been in foster care who endure circumstances and situations that were beyond their control. People will never know the struggles of young people growing up in foster care, especially during the time that I was coming up, which was in the early 90s. We didn't have all these different social workers and programs and things like that in place. So I hope that my story was able to help you in some type of way. Um, what's next? Journey. It's always something on my sleeve. I love the Journey program. I'm always diving into it some way or another. The location that we were in, after serving for 11 years, it was very difficult to serve. There was just way too many barriers to do what was right. Um, And so God had led me in a different environment to serve in. And so, although I'm excited to continue to serve the Rochester community, I'm even more excited to expand. So, if you want to see or be involved in what's going on with the Journey program, we're always looking for volunteers and mentors. We're open to accepting donations. And you can find our website at www.journeyproject.org. And you can email us at journeyproject@gmail.com if you have any questions or would like to partner with the organization in any way. Um, let's see. Oh, my autobiography will be coming out in 2024, um, where I will go into great details about my childhood, the good, bad, and ugly. And you can look forward to that. In the meantime, I'll be pouring into my children and their hopes and dreams, desires and aspirations. And I've got two that's on their way to college this summer. Um, well, this fall coming up. They're in their senior year. And I have one that's headed to college right now, next semester. And I got my little ones that are in enrichment programs and helping them learn to read and do math and division and all that. And I've got my own journey. So you can just look for more growth just in me as an individual. As I heal, the more I heal, the more, creative I become, the more I give back to the community and serve in my calling, whatever that means. Um, I just pray for everybody, with everything that's going on in the world today, especially with young people. Adults, it's kind of like we make our bed, we got to lay in it. The resources are there. Each one reach one. I made that one up. It used to be each one teach one growing up, but I feel like each one need to reach one next to them. You see somebody in need, excuse me, just help them out. But when it come to these kids, the young people, um, it's a different type of generation, you know? And if you pour into them enough, they'll listen. But you gotta be the right type of person. There's only so many chosen people that are um, chosen to be able to reach the younger generation. Because it's a lot. And it's different. It's way different. So I feel like God has called me to be that. And because of the direction and because of the calling on my life, I don't want to be famous and known for trying to get clout, for trying to be somebody's baby mama. That's not the image that I want the kids that I am trying to assist to follow in my footstep. I don't want to be famous for some negative DNA test and acting wild and crazy and showing out all on TV. We got enough of that. It's enough of that. We don't need no more.
Right.
Trust me. The one, two, or three we got is just enough for the next 10 years of influencing, the next generation. So I want to be a light. I want to be a positive role model for people. That's just what I choose. We got enough bad. So to follow along my journey and to know what's next, you definitely want to follow at I Am Journey on Instagram. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm on my last leg of this cold. But follow Journey on Instagram. I am JOURNIE on Instagram. Anything we got coming up, it'll be on there. And check us out.
Awesome, awesome. It has been, without saying, a pleasure, Nashana, having you on today's podcast. Just appreciating all of the story that you've shared about your life and your journey and experiences. I've been blessed by it, and I know others who have an opportunity to tune in are going to be blessed as well, because there's so many nuggets to pull from everything that you've shared. I'm excited about what life has in store for you ahead, both personally and in your vision, for your lovely kids that are going off and getting further in their education. That's an exciting and wonderful
Hmm.
thing to celebrate. Because there's a lot of people who they'd hear just the snippets that you shared today about your story, and they would never imagine that you would raise children that would have an experience that was totally different from that. So, moving on with their lives, getting their education, positioning themselves to also do great and wonderful things. So, you've done a magnificent job, in your role as a mother. Just taking it on full blast, and not allowing the things of the past to be crippling to you doing what you were purposed to do, and you can't do anything but respect and appreciate that. And so I'm glad and honored to have met you and had the chance for you to be on. And you, of course, are welcome at any time to come back on the show. At a future date.
I'm gonna come back.
So
I'm gonna
just
come
always know
back.
that you have
I'm
an
gonna be
open
right
invite.
here with my book release.
Absolutely. There we
Do some
go. There
updates.
we go. So we got a whole bunch of reasons. Yeah, that's right. We got a whole bunch of reasons to bring you back on. So that we will definitely make that happen at a later time. But again, I thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here, and for those of you who've had an opportunity to tune in to the episode, if you've enjoyed our content for today, you enjoy what we're just doing here at the Blessings in the Street podcast, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what it's all about. It's about encouraging, inspiring, uplifting, coming alongside other people, using our journeys, our experiences, being very transparent, being very authentic, being very vulnerable, understanding that we all go through our stuff. We all go through our storms, our challenges, but as you've heard me say many times on this podcast, it's not the end of your story. Just because you're going through a rough patch in life, just because you've been through some very challenging and traumatic and overwhelming things, in fact, it's not the end of the story, because at the end of the day, we serve a God that loves us unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for us. And even in those difficult
Amen.
moments, He's there. He's there guiding us through it.
Yeah.
There's a purpose in the pain. It's a reason for it. And we don't always understand it in the moment, but in time, it all comes together, and we see the value and the perspective of it all, and it allows us to ultimately be able to utilize the gifts that He's placed in us to carry out the works that He would have us to do for the time that we've been designated to have on this earth, to again impact lives and make change and do some powerful and positive things, with not only for others but also for ourselves. It positions us to be blessed. And so, we always, are thankful for those opportunities, and I'm glad that Nashawn is experiencing. I'm glad that I've had a chance to experience it, and I hope all of those who are, within our voices here, a earshot of our voices, and getting a chance to enjoy this content today, that you too have been blessed and inspired and encouraged. So, again, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, always remember, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and thank you once again for tuning in. God bless you. Take care of yourselves. Continue to fight that good fight. Never give up, even in the midst of the storms. And just know that a relationship with God is all so important for you to have, because we were never meant to go through these challenges of life by ourselves. It's just too much to put on our backs, but we don't have to. There's somebody out there, and we call Him God, who loves us unconditionally. He wants to be there for us, and I promise you, it'll be the best decision that you ever make in life, to have Him in your life in every aspect of it, and just watch Him blow your mind and do what the world may see as being impossible. He makes it possible, and it makes it look easy along the way. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time.